Everyone was afraid of the sunken city. She called it home. When the storms came and the sea swallowed the old world, only the tallest towers of the city remained above the waves. Bridges vanished, streets became silent canals, and the shadows of skyscrapers drifted beneath the surface. Lost, haunted, forbidden. Most people escaped inland, but not Selene. She arrived at the water's edge with nothing but a battered backpack and the memory of a city she once loved. People shook their heads at her. "No one survives down there," they said. "The sunken city is a graveyard." Selene smiled. "Every grave is full of stories. Maybe it's time someone listened." Her first steps were cautious. She found a half-flooded lobby in a forgotten hotel, its marble floors reflecting the shifting light from above. It was lonely, yes, but it was hers. That night, as the tide lapped against the crumbling walls, Selene whispered to the darkness, "I am not afraid. This place will live again." Survival in the sunken city was a daily test. Selene learned the tides, how the lower floors disappeared each afternoon, and the rooftops became islands at night. She fished from broken windows and scavenged canned food from abandoned penthouses. Old air shafts brought fresh breeze, while rainwater caught in glass atriums provided enough to drink. Danger was everywhere: shifting currents, collapsing stairwells, sudden storms. Once, she was nearly trapped by a rising tide in a subway entrance, forced to swim through dark water with only her flashlight for company. Yet, Selene adapted. She mapped the safest routes on soggy notepaper, marked walls with chalk, and learned to spot when the water was rising or falling by the creak of distant beams. Days blurred into weeks, and still she remained, one woman in a city of ghosts, building hope in every corner she reclaimed. Word spread, as it always does. First, a young man with a waterproof duffel bag arrived by rowboat searching for shelter. Then an older couple, weary but resourceful, paddled up in a salvaged kayak. Selene welcomed them, sharing what she'd learned. When the water rises, climb. When the wind howls, tie everything down. When you find food, share it. Together, they cleared debris from the upper floors, repaired makeshift bridges between rooftops, and learned to grow herbs in floating barrels filled with silt. Others followed, a mother and her two sons, a retired diver, a group of artists hungry for color in a blue-gray world. Every newcomer brought something: a memory, a skill, a willingness to try. Slowly, the sunken city began to echo with laughter, voices, and the music of life returning. What was once a ruin became a haven. The community grew, floor by floor and rooftop by rooftop. Selene led the way, fearless and patient, showing others how to waterproof doors with melted plastic, harvest rain from the shattered skylights, and plant beans in every sunny crack. A mechanic rewired solar panels from abandoned yachts, bringing weak but precious light to the upper floors. An old school teacher turned a former boardroom into a classroom, scribbling lessons on fogged glass while children floated by on salvaged pool toys. Days began with a chorus of greetings from window to window. Nights ended with the glow of lanterns reflected in the water and the sound of stories echoing across the canals. There was always risk. A collapsed walkway meant a long, dangerous swim. A failed crop meant hunger. A night of heavy rain might flood their lowest rooms and scatter supplies. But with each challenge, the community found new solutions. What was once a city of fear was slowly being reborn. Not everyone who arrived brought good intentions. One afternoon, a group of strangers in a motorboat tried to take control of the best tower, demanding food and shelter in exchange for protection. Tensions rose. Old fears threatened to resurface. Selene called a council, inviting everyone, even the newcomers, to speak. Her voice was steady but firm. "We are not a fortress but a home. If you stay, you help. If you harm, you leave." Most chose cooperation, tempted by the promise of belonging and safety. A few, still angry and unwilling to work, left before sunrise, their boat fading into the fog. That night, the remaining group gathered in the tallest penthouse, sharing a meal by lantern light. No one spoke of the danger, but trust, once fragile, now grew roots. The sunken city's network expanded. People constructed floating gardens from empty barrels and fishing nets, joined rooftops with sturdy bridges, and mapped safe passages through the canals. A pair of divers found a working generator in a flooded garage, restoring power to an entire block. Celebrations grew more frequent. On the anniversary of the city's rebirth, Lanterns floated across the water, each carrying a wish. Music drifted from balconies. Children performed plays on makeshift rafts. Selene watched it all with quiet pride. The city she called home, once silent, then feared, now shone with life, possibility, and hope. Each season brought new challenges and new inventions. When spring tides threatened to submerge the lower floors, the community worked together to build floating storage rafts and secure valuables high above the waterline. Engineers fashioned pulley systems from bicycle chains, raising supplies and even people between stories. Food became a cause for celebration and collaboration. Floating greenhouses, cobbled together from glass, pipes, and bits of plastic, were anchored to rooftops, bursting with tomatoes, squash, and leafy greens. Fish were raised in underwater cages, and foraged mussels became a staple. The artists painted murals along the upper walls. Waves, flowers, and portraits of every new arrival. The city's identity, once drowned in fear, blossomed into color. Selene sometimes paused on her evening rounds, listening to laughter and music echoing over the water, and allowed herself a smile. With prosperity came new connections to the outside world. Word of the sunken city's survival and spirit traveled upriver, reaching distant communities. Refugees arrived by makeshift barges and rafts, carrying tools, seeds, and stories of their own struggles. Selene greeted each group at the water's edge, repeating her promise: "This is a home for all who work and care." Trade blossomed: salt, dried fish, and fresh vegetables in exchange for cloth, books, and rare medicines. A boat ride from another ruined city taught them how to build better rafts. A doctor brought new ideas for keeping water clean. As the network grew, so did the city's confidence. No longer hidden or afraid, they were proud to be called the sunken city. Not even the strongest community could escape loss. A fierce storm struck, battering rooftops and flooding the lower towers. One of the original survivors, a beloved gardener, was swept away by the tide, leaving behind a garden and an empty chair. Selene gathered the city on the rooftops, lighting candles that flickered in the night breeze. She spoke softly, her words echoed in the silence. "We have made a home here. That means loving, losing, and remembering together." The community mourned, then rebuilt, stronger and closer than before. Seeds saved from the lost garden were planted in every barrel and windowsill. As the floodwaters receded, hope sprouted once again, bright and stubborn, rooted in the city's depths. Time moved forward, and the sunken city began to shine as a beacon. Annual festivals were held on the rooftops, with lanterns strung from antenna to antenna and music echoing across the flooded streets. Children dove from balconies into clear pools, their laughter mixing with the calls of gulls. Selene watched new leaders emerge: a teacher who opened a floating school, a farmer who grew berries in hanging baskets, a tinkerer who turned trash into water filters. The city's council became more diverse, with voices representing every rooftop, raft, and walkway. Visitors arrived not just for safety, but to learn how to filter water with sun and sand, how to build homes that rose and fell with the tides, how to forgive old wounds and start anew. The city became a classroom, a refuge, and most of all, a promise. Yet change always brought uncertainty. One day, a new group arrived, scientists from the distant mainland, armed with equipment and eager questions. They wanted to study the city, learn its secrets, and, perhaps, copy its success elsewhere. Some residents welcomed the outsiders, excited to share their achievements. Others worried that too much attention would bring trouble, jealousy, envy, even attempts to take control. Selene called a meeting on the largest rooftop. She listened to every voice, then spoke with calm authority. "We survived because we worked together. We have nothing to hide, but this city belongs to everyone who calls it home, no one else." An agreement was reached. The scientists could observe, but only as guests and helpers, never rulers. Balance was maintained and new ideas blossomed. In the years that followed, the sunken city became a legend. Rafts and boats traveled from far and wide, carrying people who dreamed of starting over. Some stayed, some learned and left, but all carried a part of the city's hope with them. Selene, older now, spent her evenings watching lanterns float across the water, each one a wish or a memory. Children called her the city's heart, but she always replied, "It's not my city. It's everyone's who dared to love it." On the longest night of the year, as the moon reflected in every window and wave, the community gathered for a festival of lights. Together, they sang songs of the depths, the storms, and the hope that refused to drown. In that shimmering city, beneath the waves, life went on, brighter and stronger than ever. The influence of the sunken city reached distant lands. Delegates from floodplain villages and island towns arrived to form a council of waterborne communities. Trade flourished. Grains for fish, stories for tools, and seeds for wisdom. A new tradition took root. Every spring, the city's children launched painted boats filled with seedlings, gifts for neighbors downstream. Those boats returned weeks later with thank you notes and new varieties of flowers and fruit. Engineers and artists collaborated on floating sculptures that danced on the tides, visible for miles, symbols of resilience and creativity. The city's heart expanded. Selene welcomed every visitor with open arms and careful eyes, teaching them how to adapt, improvise, and, most of all, how to hope. The city also faced new threats. A disease swept in with the summer rains, spreading among close quarters. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly. Volunteers turned rooftops into open-air clinics, and neighbors cared for the sick and the lonely. For the first time, fear threatened to unravel what had been built. Selene, herself stricken by fever, refused to be isolated. She called for patience and kindness, reminding everyone, "We survived the sea and the storms. We will survive this too, together." And they did. The illness passed, leaving grief but also deepened bonds. The city honored the lost with new gardens, planted atop the highest towers, each blossom a memory of someone cherished. With recovery came celebration. The sunken city, once a symbol of ruin and loss, now stood as a testament to what people could achieve when they refused to give up. A museum opened in the shell of an old courthouse, filled with relics of the flood and stories of those who had built something new from disaster. Selene, older but undiminished, was honored at the opening. She walked among children who had never known the world before the water, her eyes shining with pride. At dusk, as lanterns floated down the canals and music swirled from rooftop to rooftop, Selene addressed her family and friends. "We called this place home because we made it so. Promise me you'll always find room for new stories, new faces, and new hope." Her words echoed over the water, a blessing for generations yet to come. Decades rolled on, and the sunken city only grew stronger. Bridges of bamboo and steel arched between high towers, swaying gently with the tides. Floating parks and rooftop orchards offered shade and fruit to children who had never known dry land. Boats and rafts wove a constant web of movement, ferrying people, food, and stories across the shimmering canals. The council's circle widened to include voices from every quarter: engineers, teachers, artists, and elders from both near and far. Every year, the city's population swelled with those who came to learn and help, a living tapestry of hope woven from 100 backgrounds. Selene, hair silver and eyes bright, no longer climbed the highest towers. Instead, she sat on her favorite balcony, teaching children to plant seeds in buckets and telling stories of the world before water. One spring, a flotilla of new arrivals appeared on the horizon, bringing rare seeds, books, and a song that had traveled the world. At the great annual festival, Selene watched as hundreds of lanterns floated down the canals. The children sang a chorus that echoed against the high walls. "We live where others feared, we build where others fled. We are the city that rose from the deep." Selene wept with joy, seeing her dream living in so many hearts. Selene's final years were gentle, filled with gratitude and reflection. She mentored new generations of leaders, reminding them that kindness was the true foundation of the city. Every week, she listened to newcomers, hearing their worries and teaching them how to adapt to the rhythm of the tides. The city continued to innovate. Floating hospitals, solar-powered schools, and a vast garden, planted atop the submerged ruins, fed the community and brought beauty to the skyline. When storms raged or sickness threatened, Selene's calm presence soothed fears. She often said, "We are strongest when we help the weakest." On the 50th anniversary of her arrival, the whole city gathered to honor her. They painted her portrait on the tallest tower, a beacon visible for miles, and placed a plaque beneath it. She called it home, and so did we. That night, as Selene sat surrounded by friends and family, she whispered, "If you remember nothing else, remember this: hope floats." She passed quietly soon after, her hand held by a grandchild, her story written in every brick, bridge, and heart. Long after Selene was gone, her spirit filled every corner of the sunken city. Her name was sung in lullabies, written in mosaics, and honored at every lantern festival. The city kept growing, linked by friendship and a stubborn refusal to let go of hope. Each year, on the night the waters first rose, children launched candleboats across the canals. Messages written in chalk lined the walls. "Thank you, Selene. We belong." Home from the depths. Travelers came from distant shores to learn the story of the woman who turned fear into belonging, ruin into renewal. And so, as lanterns bobbed under the moon and music drifted from rooftop to rooftop, the sunken city's legacy lived on. Everyone was afraid of the sunken city, but she called it home.